Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the ULAB podcast. We have with us the co founder of Raisable Founders Hub, Sacha, who is helping immigrant founders build and scale in Silicon Valley by opening access to trusted networks and capital. He's also worked with StartX at Stanford GSB, partnering with Sequoia, Accel, and Lightspeed, and has helped founders raise over $1.3 billion. Sasha, welcome to this episode of the ULAB podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you as well. So, Sasha, before we jump into the different segments of the podcast, my first question to you is about the unstoppable moment. Looking back, what inflection point in your life gave you the unstoppable spirit that you have today?
So actually, for me, it's pretty clear. There was a pretty big moment that was very pivotal for me. So when I was younger, after finishing university, I had a different direction. I really wanted to be a stuntman, and so I was trying to do that for a while. And long story short, I ended up breaking my leg, and kind of ending that dream and having pretty major surgery and reconsidering everything. I was in LA. I was 24, didn't really have a lot of experience or like nothing that kind of have a direction in life. So it gave me a lot of time in the hospital and then moving back to my parents' house and of time to reflect on what I want my life to be and the direction I was taking. And that was a very, very big moment for me, of course. And it also taught me, how resilient I can be, to go through all that and all the physical therapy and learning to walk and run and do all these things again. And at the same time, while I was going through all that, I, started applying to business school, starting applying to jobs. I became a dive master, a scuba diving guide. Went to do a master's in Paris in business, and kind of restarted my career in my mid 20s. But it also gave me the strength and the inner resolve to persevere in the face of obstacles, in the face of these unforeseen accidents and circumstances. So for me, that's something I often come back to when I'm having a hard time, when I don't know what's going on, or things are not lining up the way I wanted in life. I kind of think back to that moment, um, that was a low for me, but also that kind of showed me in a way who I am or who I can be.
Right. And how many months or years was this that you went through, including your recovery and then?
It was so I broke my leg, I got surgery, I broke, it was very, I don't want to get too graphic maybe, but I had a plate and seven screws. I got a fake ligament. I tore my ligament as well,
Right.
dislocated my ankle. So the surgery, hospital, a few days, 3, 4 days, and then physical therapy to start walking again was about 3 months. After 6 months, more or less, was almost back to 100%. And then to really, I was always very athletic. So to get back really into sports, into contact sports, I did a lot of like boxing, Thai boxing, things like that. Probably a year really to be
Wow.
fully back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's moments like these, sometimes when I'm less grateful for the things I have, I used to learn, have piano lessons. We call it harmonium here. And my teacher who used to come to teach me was blind. And, when I
Mm.
sort of just to be grateful for the little things, right? That we're able to see, we're able to walk. Maybe we're not that grateful for these things, which I think maybe a lot of people who do not have it,
Yeah,
it's everything. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And it just as you said, like just walking. Like we take it for granted.
Yeah,
Most of us just walk all the time and we don't think about it. Uh,
absolutely.
But yeah, breaking my leg, getting through. I broke my leg when I was 17 as well. I broke my femur, so I went through something similar, and not being able to walk, not being able to run, not being able to
Right.
do things for myself,
Yeah.
drive, go places, no independence. It gives you a real gratitude for the little things. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so coming to your life journey, you've experienced cultural diversity living in France and US. So how did these experiences shape your work and your
Mhm.
understanding of founders and venture ecosystems today?
So for me, it's really deep. It's even deeper than where I've lived because my parents, my family is multicultural. So my mom's from Iran, my dad's from France. I was born in the U.S., but we moved to France when I was about three. I grew up there, came back to study in LA, went back to France, lived in London a bit, lived in New Jersey, now in San Francisco Bay Area for 8 or 9 years. Um, so kind of my whole background, half my family's Iranian, half my family's French. I'm kind
Right,
of, first generation American, my brother and I. So I've always been in the mix of cultures and people. And even when I, lived in France, I went to international schools or in US, like I always kind of assimilated most with the people that were immigrants or expatriates or just folks that were not at home. I mean, I have plenty of American friends and French friends too, but there's an affinity. You kind of understand each other better because you were kind of in between the lines. So I've always had that as kind of my baseline. And then working with founders, first at StartX, at Stanford, now at Raisable, I work with a lot of international and immigrant founders. And there's just something that resonates with between us, I think. There's just like some understanding, and it's just a bit of a different path. And it's a bit, more difficult in many ways. There's of course, the cultural aspects. Sometimes like just expressing yourself can be difficult, right? Like the way you want to. And if it's your second or third language, um, your personality may be a bit different just because you can't express yourself the way you would want to. So you're not as comfortable, so it's not as easy. So it's something that I've always felt passionate about. Is helping folks, especially founders, highly motivated people trying to do things that are going to change the world. And there's some obstacles in their way that are, additional to already building a business is incredibly hard. And if you have layers on top of that of cultural adaptation, of communication issues, of lack of access, it just makes it almost insurmountable at some points, right? So that's something I'm super passionate about and that's why I love, working at Raisable. I also have a podcast I started to kind of showcase and focus on
right.
immigrants, not just founders, but just general people that have immigrated here and how they built their lives and careers here. Um, and for me, it's something that's deeply American, and that's the part I really love about the United States is that it really is built by immigrants and for immigrants, and the power of the U.S. economically, the soft power, everything is really built on the fact that some of the smartest people from all around the world come here to live and work. So I really embrace that, and I want to, celebrate that and be part of, um, yeah, be part of it.
Great. And also, Sasha, that you worked almost for 3.5 years, right, with StartX at Stanford GSB, where you launched and led programs supporting over 250 companies, 400 plus founders, partnering with big names like Accel, Sequoia, Lightspeed, like I mentioned before, um, helping founders raise almost 1.3 billion for over 1.3 billion dollars, right? My first question in this segment is about founder signals. What founder signals matter most that never appear in a pitch deck or data room?
First of all, I do want to clarify that StartX is separate from Stanford, but they span out of Stanford back in the day. I did work there for a bit over a year. And then yeah, I did work at the GSB at the Stanford Graduate School of Business for a little over 3.5 years, building startup accelerators and supporting founders with some of the VCs you named, some other organizations. Um, yeah, I think, a lot of things that don't show up in the pitch decks or data rooms or these things are really around um, the founders, the founding team, right? Like the people. And there's always something, there's always, you're always trying to test or figure out the perseverance and the resilience of those folks. And that's something that doesn't really you can't just put it down cleanly in like a document or something or a deck, right? It's kind of the sum of your experiences, how you reacted to things, how you approach problem solving, and um, how you're going to apply that to this company, to your company. So
Right.
I think that's always a big thing. Like they call it grit. You heard about that grit a lot, resilience, perseverance, whatever you want to call it. It's huge and it's eh, ethereal in a way. Like it's hard to measure clearly. But I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Another one we were looking for a lot, sorry, while we were at Stanford, because that's a bit of a different perspective. It's not, a VC perspective of backing, right, founders that will explode is more an educational perspective. So like coachability or mentorability was a big factor we would look at, right? So like a lot of
Right.
founders are very smart people, right? Very smart. Some are already very accomplished, might not be their first startup or they've had, other successes in their careers. But are they humble enough? Are they willing to be open enough to learn some things, to hear and to accept that, you know, they're very good at certain things. They may not know everything though, and we're going to bring other things to them that hopefully complements their, skill sets that allows them to be more successful. But if you're not receptive to that, then there's no point. It's a waste of time on both sides, right? So that was a big
Yeah.
factor for us as well. And again, it's not something that's clearly you see in a deck or anywhere like, oh yeah, I'm super open to feedback and learning and whatever. So we had interviews. We met all the founders before accepting them to the programs. We chatted with them. We had our own criteria we would look through. Um, but yeah, for me, those are the two big ones that come to mind.
So the curiosity to learn and the ability to be coachable.
Yeah, and the resilience. I think resilience is a big thing. Like how you're going to deal with failure or rejection or both. Um, and yeah, and it's a thin line. You got to learn. You got to be
Yeah.
confident in yourself that you know what you're doing and project confidence. But you also got to be able to say, "Oh, I don't know everything," and there's certain parts where I need my team, my investors, my partners, whoever, to give me that information. Right. So it's not easy. It's not easy to be in the middle there.
And that's so Stanford like, because as you're explaining this, I think, if anything, being part of the Stanford Lead course and for the whole ecosystem that I'm a part of at Stanford, I think Stanford highly values curiosity and resilience both. I think, even with professors that we work with, they may know everything, but still will be so humble and have humility to know more, learn more, even from their own students. And I think that is a big quality and goes a long way because in the world we live in, which is fast changing, and you've so much to learn in different fields, different domains. I think, yeah, what you've mentioned is significantly important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. And exactly as you said, right, it's not just in the participants that we're looking for that. It's in the professorial core. Like the professors and lecturers, they all have that interest and curiosity. And why they're so excited, why they were so excited to teach in programs like the ones I led, is that they
right.
get a chance to meet these founders
Yeah,
and to learn from these people doing crazy new things and these new companies and technologies. So they get to learn as well as a professor, like, oh, how do you do that? Or, like they get to do some research or get in touch with these folks through these programs. So yeah, it's kind of everyone's excited. And a lot of the learning is also not just from the professors through the class, but like peer to peer from the people, especially in these programs, which is all, founders. In the main program, Stanford DYDX, which you mentioned with the VCs, they're all
right.
backed by tier one VCs, right? They're all Series A
Yes,
plus companies. They've raised tens or hundreds of millions. They have dozens or hundreds of employees. There's a lot of people you can learn from in that room, not just from the professors. So it kind of goes all around, which is awesome.
absolutely. Okay, so this question is about trust capital and ecosystem architecture. In venture capital, fundamentally, trust allocation, is more than probably or more important than probably the capital allocation. And so is the ecosystem structurally biased towards founders with pre-existing network capital, even before their traction becomes visible? Do you think that's the case?
It's, yeah, I do think there certainly is. Um, I mean, trust is super important. And if you have already a track record and you've already been in the shoes of a founder, you've already had VC money, and you've managed those millions of dollars given to you in a trustworthy way, that's huge. And even if your company failed, by the way, it doesn't mean like, oh, only for successful founders, right? Like, no, the company can fail for a number of reasons, and you as a founder were still, a good operator, and you're still kind of trustworthy enough to get another chance, right? Another company. And often you can it depends on how you fail and why you fail, right? But
Right.
if you fail the right way and for reasons that are acceptable, then, you'll get a chance again. And actually, even maybe more so because you went through the process and you have the experience than someone who's doing it for the first time. Things that are unacceptable is if you go against that trust and you do things that are fraudulent, if you lie, if defraud, whatever, like that's it for you. I think like you do that, you're never
Yeah.
going to get VC money again, right? So
Right.
there are things that are unacceptable. And as a first time founder, yeah, you are in a way confronted to that, right? Like you're in a way like they will wonder if they can trust you with this money. It's a lot of money. And,
Exactly.
like VCs are beholden to their LPs as well. There's a whole structure where they're accountable.
Right.
And so they have to trust you with this money. They have to trust that you're going to make this, not just use it effectively, but hopefully make it, fructify and multiply and get into something much bigger. And if you've never shown, if you're 20 and you're a first time founder, like it's really much harder to show that in some ways. Um, So yeah, there is something there for sure. Of course, it's not impossible. Like no matter what your background, that's kind of the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship for me is that yes, there is access, there is trust, there's networks, but it is also as close as it can get, in my opinion, to just a meritocracy, where if you're good enough and work hard enough, you can really make it. You can really build a great company with or without VC money, by the way. Not all companies should be VC backed or need to be. There are many different strategies to financing and growing a company. But yeah, you can have an opportunity um, that having been said, it's not easy, right? Even for multiple time founders, even for anyone, fundraising is not easy. And I'm helping a few founders right now with fundraising, and some of them have sold a company before, and it's still a long process. It's still an arduous process. Um, so there are many things that can be in your favor. Certainly, trust, background, network, access, all of these things help. But in the end, there's many factors, and it's a hard thing to do. It's just, yeah, will always be difficult.
Right. Yeah, there's this research paper, which is called How Do Venture Capitalists Make Decisions by Paul Gompers, William Gornall, Stephen Kaplan, and Ilyas Trubilev from Stanford GSB. And the key finding is that 95% of VCs rated team as important, and 47% of them rated team as the most important factor for decision making. So, what, Sasha, according to you, are the constructs in the founding team which is evaluated? Is it the school they've been to, the prior corporate experience, the domain expertise, their storytelling? What attributes become the
Mhm.
sharpest alpha signals in founder selection, according to you?
Yeah, I think a bit of all of those. So a team is particularly important in the earlier stages of a company, right? In the first few rounds. I don't know that exact paper, but I know Ilya's work and research is very focused on that. Um, so when you don't have any or much signals or metrics or traction, the team becomes basically your proxy for everything, right? So
Especially
you're
in the
looking
earlier
at
stages, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's pre-seed, seed, even Series A. Like,
Yeah,
team is very important. If you start getting Series A, B, C, it become more important what you have done and the metrics of the business because you're becoming closer to a mature business that can be evaluated on the kind of business fundamentals
yeah,
that you would do. So you're getting closer to public, market evaluations. But in the beginning, you're just a group of people with an idea and maybe very little to no proof of what you're doing or what you believe is possible.
Right.
So then, yeah, team is paramount. And then you're going to look at, yeah, like past experience. Sure, like schools can be a proxy because, like going to a school like Stanford or Harvard, shows that you can learn and that you're smart to some degree. It also shows that you have access to amazing networks, and
Yeah.
that's a big thing, right? So those are great factors. Your experience, if you have a lot of industry experience,
Right.
that's great. You have a deep understanding of the problem you're working on from the perspective of someone who was in that industry. That's huge. Any personal experience of like why you're trying to solve a specific problem, if it's a lived problem or experience that you've been through, and
Mm.
that you can show you have passion. I think passion is super important. You have passion for it, and you will stay committed to solving this problem, even if the product you're doing or the solution you're doing is switching and you're pivoting. You're still very much like passionate and committed to solving this problem, so you'll stick with
Right.
it. And I think the complementarity of the team. So who's in your team and what's their role and what's their backgrounds, depending on, you want an alignment between the team, the market, the product. Um, you hear a lot about product market fit. There's like founder product fit or founder market fit. Um, you want a founding team that's kind of well balanced to some degree and that will be able to do what they say they're going to do, basically. Or if they don't, if they're missing a key part, that they have a understanding of it, first of all, that they're not overconfident that they, we got it. We don't need a CTO or we don't need a CEO, whatever. Um, so they understand it and that they have a plan to kind of solve it and to recruit someone or to do something to compensate for that lack. Um, if you're young and you don't have a lot of track record, things get a little more complicated because it's harder to evaluate. And that's where other signals or proxies, like which schools you've been to, what internships you've had, what projects you work on, what student clubs you've led, whatever. Like these become more important because there's less other information about your kind of track record as a professional. Um, so you got to think about it. There's no one general rule, but if you're a early stage founding team and you're going to talk to VCs, think about, why you're the ones that they would back to solve this problem over anyone else in the world, right? So you really got to put yourself apart in some way.
And Sasha, beyond the founding team, once that team filter is already applied, what are the top three metrics that matter the most for a starter to be truly venture backable?
I wouldn't put any specific because it's so dependent on your business and your sector
Right.
and what you're doing, right? So I think what's more important than a specific metric, users or revenues or things like that, it's the story you're telling and it's the progression you're showing. Um, so you can have great, let's say revenue. You can have great revenue number, but with
Right.
very low growth, that's not attractive in a way
Hmm.
to a VC because the VC, the goal is growth,
Yes.
right? That could be a great like small medium business that you just keep organic, potentially, right? But a VC is not going to be like, oh, I'll put money. You're not growing at the speed they want to see, right? So growth and the direction you're going is super important. And so that's why like there's no specific metric. I think it depends on your industry and
Probably
background, but it's
TAM,
about
maybe TAM, right?
that goes into it, right?
Yeah.
Where it gets complicated is businesses that are super attractive to VCs are often ones that are creating new markets or growing with a new emerging market. So like things like TAM are hard to know on a market that's nascent or barely existing yet, right? Like
Fair.
those
Yes.
estimates can be very broad. So that could be good. So again, it's like a number of proxies, right? You're putting TAM, you're putting, okay, this is our growth, this is our, conversion from pilots to paid or whatever. Like that's huge as well. Your retention, there's a lot of things you can show, but it's about how they all fit together into a story that show that you're a company that's going into this direction that they want
Right.
to see and that's going to reach that height, right? Like a VC is playing an asymmetric game where they know a lot of the companies they're investing in are going to lose. are going to
Exactly.
fall. They're
Yeah.
not going to return,
Yes.
but they're looking for the one that's going to return the whole fund, right?
Yes.
And so you're always trying to convince them that you're the one because even though they take 10 bets, they know that 8 or 9 are going to fail. When they're taking each of those bets, they believe that every single one of those can be the fund returner. They're not taking a bet like, oh, this one is going to do 3x. Like, if they believe that, they're not putting the money. That
Exactly.
might be the outcome, but
Yeah.
up front, they believe you're going to do 100x. So you always got to think about that as a founder, and that's what you're trying to convey as a story, and an ambition and a conviction that you're going to be the one that gets there, or one
Hmm.
of them.
Right.
So
Right.
no specific metrics, but again, you build it all together depending on your specific background, industry, company, to kind of weave it into the story of we're here today, but we're going to be there in 3, 5, 10 years.
Right. You work with some elite institutions and, trusted networks. So do you believe that institutional affiliation creates real leverage, especially in fundraising, or is it just a signaling arbitrage?
I do think it creates opportunity. Um, it's if you have a brand backing you, that's one thing, right? Like just the kind of
Yes.
stamp or whatever, the Y Combinator, Stanford, like just that does give you something, some signal. But I think the bigger part of it is the access it gives you. It's the network that's baked in, right? So if you go to, you know, any of these institutions, you have alumni, you have, like different ways to get into contact with people. And usually these people are very receptive to hearing from others, especially if it's startup organizations like accelerators, like Y
Yeah.
Combinator um, or StartX. Like those are very community based and people help each other out. And the network you can get through that is huge. Um, so I do think it's very valuable. I do. I don't think it's the only way to do it. I don't think that
Okay.
if you're not in any of these, you're no chance for you. No, I don't think that's true either. I've seen many founders from, lesser known universities or backgrounds that haven't gone to YC or other places, and they still raised, 50 million from Sequoia or something. So it's possible, but I mean, it does give you a better chance, I think, just because if someone you're whatever, especially at the earlier stages, you're saying, "Oh, we're raising pre-seed. I went to Stanford. I went to Harvard. I went to MIT." That's going to be one of the factors that helps. Or if you're at
Yeah.
YC and you say, "Hey, I talked to one of the partners at YC. I need a contact in this company. I want to pitch him to be our client or whatever." Like you could get that access as well, much easier.
Yeah.
So it does give you a leg up.
Yeah, and I think it's not just about the capital, it's also about resources, networks, mentorship, so many other things that come with it, right? It's just
Exactly.
not the
Yeah.
capital. Yeah.
Yeah, not just capital. It could be clients, could be employees, could be interns, could be just
Yeah.
knowledge, can be any number of things. And yeah, just having the opportunity to tap into that quickly as opposed to having to
Yes.
be the one to figure it all out. It just saves you a lot of effort and time. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so this question is a little broad, but I'll still go ahead and ask. A lot of companies get funded, like we spoke, but very few succeed. So what separates a category defining company from a company that's merely venture backable, according to you?
Um, yeah, that's a big question because if I had a very clear answer to that, I'd probably be way more successful than I am. Uh,
Oh,
just
come
backing
on.
every
That's
era-defining company, it's it's
yeah.
much easier to see in retrospect. I think it's like Steve Jobs was saying, you can line up all the dots looking backwards, but forward, it's almost
Yeah.
impossible to see it. Um, it's a number of factors. You need to have the right team at the right place at the right time, and for any number of reasons that can go wrong or right. Uh, I do think like there's always a part of luck as well, just having the right
Right.
being starting at the right time and being there. And always a huge amount of hard work. I've never seen a founder succeed by just kind of just being there at the right time. So it's definitely a combination of those two plus surrounding yourself by the right people. As a founder, the teams you build is what's gonna, I think, is the biggest differentiator. The people you hire and surround yourself with as employees, as investors, as partners, even as clients,
Right.
that can make all the difference. Um, but yeah, it's hard to tell, right? Like right now we're in this AI race, and it seems like there's a few big players like OpenAI, Anthropic, and whatnot that are going to win. And
Right.
that seems maybe evident right now, but maybe in a few years, that's not going to be the case, right? Like we've seen things like
Yeah.
DeepSeek pop up and suddenly be, oh, wow, open source, super cheap version of the same thing that's could replace it, right? So who knows what the next step is, what's going to emerge next. And the ones
Yeah.
that are big incumbents now may not be the winners. Um, yeah, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. No,
Sorry,
true. I mean,
my voice has
OpenAI
just
was
died.
completely sort of, dependent on NVIDIA for everything when it comes to the AI, right? And then they have signed a contract with Cerebras, which is, I think, more than $10 billion right now, right? So suddenly, like a year back, we didn't even know Cerebras existed, and then at least for people outside Silicon Valley, we didn't even know. But today, I mean, it's big. It's a big name in itself. So true.
Yeah, I think things are changing super fast right now.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think we're seeing a lot of noise as well, so to speak. And
Really.
so,
Hmm.
yeah, it's there's maybe we're getting a bit like slower in the cycle, but there was a lot of hype around AI, a lot of money going towards everything AI,
Yes,
and not everyone can be a winner. Just not everyone's going to make it. So I think there will be some change. And there'll be the emergence of a few kind of era-defining companies, as you're saying, and a lot of the others are not going to make it. It's hard to see which is which right now. Obviously, there's a lot of talk around the infrastructure and now the hardware piece of kind of the whole AI cycle and the data centers and whatnot. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of moving pieces right now, and people are trying to move fast, and things are moving faster. I think that's also a big part of it
yes,
with these developments in AI. There's the possibility to do a lot more in a lot less time for a lot less cost. And so the cycles are kind of contracting and things are moving faster and faster. And so the implications are seeing what it means or what's going to be the state of the market in 4, 5, 10 years is getting harder.
absolutely.
So the future is getting closer in a way. And so the timelines are getting shorter. It's Yeah, I mean, it's a very exciting time to be part of it all. It's also a bit scary because like it's overwhelming what is going on, but it's hard to predict, at least from my perspective.
Because we're talking about AI, one of the questions come to my mind is that do you think geography still creates structural advantage, or, have talent networks and remote due diligence made location a vanishing variable? It's no more important
Mm.
or will become not so important in future.
I think that's super interesting question. I think that's like, during the pandemic, there was that rhetoric a lot or that, right? Like, oh, now we're all remote. People are moving from SF to Austin or wherever. There's all these secondary startup hubs. It's
Yes,
flattening, as you said, like the geographic like advantage of being in a certain location is kind of flattening. But the reality we saw with that, and I think it's going to be similar now with AI, is that it didn't flatten that much, so to speak. I mean, it did, right? There was some rebalancing, but there's still such structural advantages to being in a place like the Bay Area because everything is just there,
I
because
agree.
it's so baked in terms of geography, everyone's close, but in terms of mentality as well, everyone understands how this works and has been deeply immersed into this kind of entrepreneurship ecosystem. So it's really hard to replicate that. And I'm super interested in this, right? Because I love, like, I'm from France as well, and I want to build, like, I think France has a lot of positives that can build towards a great startup ecosystem. There's a lot of structural issues with the way, you know, the regulations and everything are. Um, and they've tried things, but it's so hard. It takes so many years to build that momentum. And just being, the reality is, uh, VCs want to be close to their investments and they want to be able to check in and chat with the people and meet the people.
Right.
So you're not going to make a bunch of investments that are super far that you can only see by Zoom, at least for the majority of VCs. So there still is that kind of geography that matters. And it's not just VCs, right? Because, like, for example, you're here in the Bay, you have Stanford, you have Berkeley, you have great schools, so you can hire great people that are graduating from here. They're right there. You go to career fairs. You have all the big tech companies. You can partner with them. You can go talk to them. Like, it's all so close, and I think that's huge. That it's hard to quantify and hard to say, oh, that's giving you an 3x or whatever, like a multiplication on your chance of success. But I think it certainly is there, and it's
Right.
changing, and there's more access and opportunity globally than ever before, but not, I mean, there's still no place like the Bay Area if you're doing a startup. And we see it, right? With the valuations, with the number of companies, with the everything is kind of higher here. And there's a reason for that.
But don't you think, Sasha, that there's so much of untapped potential out there in the developing world, and probably founders who've never entered the gates of Stanford and Berkeley, but have immense potential in terms of building some of the really big problem-solving ventures that we may not
Mhm.
today probably look at it. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely, right? There's billions of people in this world, and just
yeah,
because we're here and everything seems to be here doesn't mean that it's the only place with smart people and people trying to do things that will improve the world. And really that's why, for Raisable, that's kind of our mission, right?
yes,
Like, this is what we're established on, and what we believe in is that there is so much talent all over the world, right? The most of the opportunity is still here. It's going to be much harder to build a multi-billion dollar company if you're um oh sorry, I think we cut out. If you're in, any number of areas that have less access to capital, less access. We haven't seen, if you look at Fortune 500 companies, and a lot of them started as venture-backed companies, most of them are US companies, right? Like, most huge companies in the world are US. China's a bit of exception because they have their kind of self-centered market. Europe
yeah,
has some, but it's much harder if you're in Africa or Latin America or Southeast Asia. There's a lot less, right? Or
yeah,
Central Asia. So, kind of connecting the dots of, like, all these smart people wanting to do great things with all the kind of baked in ecosystem that's here, that's really the mission we have at Raisable, because we believe in that. We believe in the kind of untapped potential of the rest of the world. And if you can just give them the right access to the right people, they'll have the chance to do it. And hopefully, as you said, hopefully AI and certain things can make it more global and more interconnected. But for the time being, it's still like such a almost unfair advantage to be here.
yeah,
That might as well come do it here if you can. And I think there's another side to it. Um, Being an immigrant and having to go through all the difficulties that it takes to be here, to get visas, to get, there's extra layers to it. But going through all that kind of is another filter for how perseverant you are, how resilient you are, how much you're going to give to make this happen. Um, and for me, that's another kind of signal or proxy to, like, see that maybe they have a higher probability to be successful because they have to go through more
yeah.
or
No,
overcome more, I should say.
I absolutely love the idea behind Raisable Founders Hub, what you're doing. I think there are many, many founders out there outside of the US who actually just dream of the Silicon Valley and to be there, and they have all the potential, but may not have the access or the right networks, and you're essentially opening the doors for them. And that's why coming to the next segment, it is about immigrant founders. And so my question for you is that what do outsider founders most commonly misread about Silicon Valley's deal flow or how the trust networks actually operate, in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, there's many aspects to it, but one of the things I see most commonly, and that's in particular from European founders, Asian founders as well, is kind of asking for too little or showing too little ambition in a way. I think in like, for example, I'll take France because that's part of my culture. Um, it's much more natural to ask for less and have more of a kind of humble approach than in the US. You're kind of selling. You, bas Americans are amazing at marketing in general,
Mm.
compared to most people in the world. Like they're great storytellers, they're great marketers. It's kind of ingrained into the culture here. It's not so natural in a lot of other cultures. So in France, you kind of undersell, over deliver is more the perspective. But then when you're going in front of VC and you're asking for too little and you're aiming for too little for them, that's a signal that that's doesn't fit into their model where they're going for the huge bets, right? That are gonna be giant companies or have the chance to be. So you're kind of signaling a mismatch if you're getting into it with that approach. So there was a program we launched while I was at Stanford. I was leading with a professor called Yossi Feinberg. It was a program, sorry, for Ukrainian founders.
Okay.
And so we had, 42 great founders from Ukraine come every year. It's a couple months, a month online, a month in person. And at the end, we had a panel, we helped them pitch and build their pitch and deck and all these things, among other things. But at the end, they had a presentation, a final pitch in front of VCs from the Silicon Valley. And the most recurrent feedback was you're not asking for enough money. And they were like, oh, we're raising 1 million or raising 1.5 million to do this. They're like, ask for three, ask for five. Like you have a big vision. You're just kind of underselling it, maybe because you're worried or because of your perspective that that's going to go over better. But asking for
Right.
less is kind of actually hindering you from getting there. So ask for more and go for the bigger vision. Um, it's a big question. What's the scale of your ambition? And I think that shows one for the VCs that you fit into the model, but two for you as a founder. Again, you don't have to go to the VC backed, venture backed model. And if that's not your ambition, if that's not your goal, then that's fine. But just be strategically aligned on that, and how you're building and financing your company should align with that vision you have. So I mean, there's many others, but I would say that's the main kind of recurrent one I see a lot. Um, just a different perspective, I guess. And so when you come here, you're not used to it. Here is everything is, and just I think overall the storytelling, like how to storytell, how to market, how to sell. Again, I feel like it's so ingrained in American people that it takes a while for a lot of other people from different cultures to kind of get up to speed on that and understand that, it's again a thin line. You're not lying. You're not a fabulous creating incredible stories, but you are creating a story of kind of
Right.
the limit of what you see as possible. You shouldn't undersell yourself or your vision.
Right. And it all starts with the vision, right? It's always a thought or an idea at first, and then you work towards it. And imagine if your vision is small, how would you even, if the goal itself is smaller, or, you're thinking that maybe, this is not where this is too big to be true. How would you even reach there? And as you're talking about it, I think it's the same for the Asians as well. So I totally relate to it. I mean, growing up, we're always taught, oh, this is too big. Maybe you should start small. Maybe, one step at a time. Maybe
Hmm.
this is not how you should talk. Maybe you're just talking too big, right? So
Yeah.
I totally, totally relate to this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because the startup world is full of contradictions in a way, right? You're not trying to. There's a there's a line to walk where you're selling and you're telling a story. It can be a
Yeah.
lie. You don't want to be a Theranos or something where it was all
Yeah.
never going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but you gotta project confidence and you gotta project vision. Otherwise, if you don't believe it, if you don't believe you're going to be a billion, $10 billion company, whatever it is, no one else is going to believe it. You got to start with you, and then you
Yes.
project it out into the world.
Absolutely. And did you also have to break that barrier when you moved to US, or somehow it was there in you? Just just
I
curious.
you- I had a soft landing, I would say, in the US. So for me, first of all, I was born here, so I have a passport. So all the visa issues, all of that were not a problem I faced directly.
Right.
So very luckily, because I have many friends and people around me who have, and it's very hard.
Yes.
Um, Secondly, I was pretty Americanized, even though I grew up in France. I went to international school, spoke English. My mom, I came every year. I came for a month to visit my family in the US. Um, and yet, even with all that, when I came when I was 18, after finishing high school, I came for university. I went to UCLA, and I'm like, oh,
Yes.
I'm American. I speak English, a passport, whatever, all this stuff. And it was still a huge culture shock for me. Like the first 6 months were really tough. Um, and even though I had no problem speaking the language, I had no idea what people were referring to. Like cultural references were completely lost on me. Like shows
Right.
and jokes and music and stuff. Like this is completely different in France. And then I come here and people are making jokes about things I've never heard of before. And it's like, oh, what are these people talking about? So
Yeah.
even I had so much, right, like
Yeah.
foundation, and it took me a while. Um, so that, in another way gave me affinity for people that are like, if you're completely unrelated to the US and you just come over, especially in your 20s, 30s, whatever, the barrier to entry and the difficulty of adaptation is really high. The cool thing with the US on the converse side, though, is that because it's such a diverse place, especially in California, you're always going to find people from your culture, right? Like
Oh
came
yeah, yeah,
here,
yeah.
I met many
Totally.
French people,
Yes.
Persian people, like people I could associate with and understand. So that's the other side. And you have all these communities um, that can help you kind of adapt as well and be a little bit between.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's the United States is a tough place. It's also a place of huge opportunity, but
Yes.
in many ways, it's an unforgiving place. So it's the way I see it is that the upper and lower bounds of how high and low you can go in society are kind of unconstrained. In France, I feel like there's a minimum floor, a lot of help, a lot of social things. There's a
Yeah.
maximum floor, a lot of tax, a
Ceiling.
lot of other things. So you're
Yeah.
kind of in a smaller range. In the US, the
Yeah.
range is like boundless, which is, you know, great and sometimes terrible.
Yeah. You made a point for the friction that founders face. And so my next question is on that where do you think immigrant founders face the most friction or barriers? And does that friction compound or ease as they move from seed to Series A, B, and beyond? Which entry point in the Silicon Valley ecosystem for them is easier? Is it when they enter at seed stage or at later stages like Series A, B, and beyond? If they're
Mhm.
moving from the other parts of the world, right?
Yeah, I think a big part of the friction is access and understanding of the norms here, of the approach, and getting access to the right people,
Right.
whether it's investors, clients, employees. If you come in here, with no connections, it's much harder, right? Than if you have a network, if you went to school, if you know friends and family. Um, so of course that's huge barriers. The best time to come, it depends on your strategy, it depends on your company. For the most part, we see pretty much two kind of entry times. One is right off the bat. you start your company here, you start going right away. And I think that's becoming more prevalent, especially with AI, especially with like things becoming less like more borderless. It makes more and more sense to from the get-go start here. And then it gives you, it helps you kind of transcend some of those barriers where you can go to an accelerator, you can go to these things, get mentorship, get community, get access right off the bat, right? The converse is, we've seen people come maybe Series A, between Series A and B, where um, they've kind of built a little bit of attraction, a little bit of a proof in the market, in their home market, and now they want to expand to, one of the biggest markets in the world. Um, that's another possibility. I think it's again, there's no one size fits all, so I'm not writing it off. I think it's more complicated in many ways, but it could make sense for your strategy. It could make sense depending on your product, on your market, on whatever. But it just will create more hurdles to pass, right? Because now you're going, let's say, from a European market, which is super fragmented. So maybe you're just one country, maybe multi-country, but each country has its own language,
Yeah.
laws, regulation, approach. So you have to create a new strategy for the US. It's a huge market. If you're not here in person, it's going to be almost impossible. So you're going to have to come over here. How is
Mhm.
it going to keep running the business in your home locality? Um, and then you're going to have to, if you want investors here, especially at the higher levels, you're going to probably have to flip your company into a US company as the top uh, hardquarter at the top co and get investment into that company. So that's like legal costs and other costs there. So
Yeah.
it gets more and more complicated. So my advice is generally, if you ever have an idea yet you want to come to the US or US is an attractive market for you as a founder, just do it from the start. Um, Again, that's
Right.
general advice. It's not going to be applied to all cases, but for the most part, I think that is the right approach.
No, absolutely. It's valuable because you've been in that ecosystem for such a long time. You understand the details of it. But then how do you, I mean, from another country, if you're moving, there are also visa issues, right, Sasha? So would you come for maybe enrolling in a university program and then start your startup? Or, I mean, what would be the entry point? Because you just cannot come to the US directly and then say, okay, I'm going to start a company. You would need a reason and of course the capital for it to be in the US, and there's so many different visa regulations for different countries, right?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. It's incredibly complex and it's getting more complex with the current administration. There's more hurdles to getting visas. We just saw this just announced that green card, people in the green card process have to wait abroad now for it instead of being here.
Yeah.
So they're just creating more barriers and making it more complicated for immigrants to work here, to come here, which I think is a shame, right? Because this is what has made America great.
Oh, of course.
And like founder, like, you know, many founders, I mean, you think of Elon Musk, you think of people that are at the top, Sundar Pichai, like they're immigrants. They came here and they've done amazing things.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, there's no one size fits all. It's complicated. You can come for a student visa, but then you're not necessarily going to have a translation into a work visa from a student visa,
Exactly.
right? So
Yes.
it's hard for me to generalize on that. I think you need to talk to specialized lawyers, immigration
Yeah.
lawyers. You need to talk your specific situation and case will depend on what kind of visa you can get or what even you want to go for. You can have some of the extraordinary visas, the O1s, things like that, but it depends on your background or AB1s. Um, yeah, it's just so complex. Um, or you can try to come on an H-1B for another company and get sponsored. Or again, I think you got to talk to some folks. You got to talk to some lawyers. There's some VC fund like Unshackled Ventures, I think is awesome because they focus purely on immigrant founders and they help them from day zero
Really?
to with the visas, with everything. So there's organizations. There's a lot of also like country governmental organizations and chambers of commerces, things like that that are in between US and whatever country that can help you and facilitate your moving over and help you guide you through that. Um, so there's options. I think, if you're considering it, you should just start talking to some professionals that are very knowledgeable about it, and you can share your specific situation and see which pathway might be the right one for you. Because there's also a lot of options on the other side, right? It's hard, but there's a lot of opportunity and options, and lots of people
Yes.
do it, obviously. So, I don't want to scare anyone for like give up before they start, but just start finding information and start building a plan and a strategy that makes sense for your specific situation.
Right. And Sasha, you are the co-founder for Raisable Founders Hub. So my question to you is that if for any founder who's listening to this podcast today, how can they apply? If they have to find you, where can they find you?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
what are the different services or support that you actually give to the founders if they're looking for access or coming to Silicon Valley and a network there? Yeah.
Yeah. The easiest way to get in touch with me is probably through my LinkedIn. So you can just look me up, Sacha, Sachaledan, Sacha Ledan. Send me a message there, connect to me. You can also go to the website, raisable.vc. You can get an overview of what we do. There's a form you can submit as well. Um, our help depends as well on what stage you're at and many different things. We believe a lot in community, so we're trying to really build a community of peers that can help each other, not just from us to them, but between each other. So we're trying to build a really strong community. We have some programmatic things where we're giving you some lessons, some things that can help you along the way. We have masterminds, what we call masterminds. It's like peer-to-peer groups moderated by successful founders or VCs that can really help each other out. We do a number of events, and then we can help individually on case per case basis depending on your situation. But the main focuses for us are, the main pillars: cultural adaptation, understanding not just the US, but the kind of Silicon Valley VC ecosystem and how to speak to these folks and what they want to hear or what they're looking for. Um, Fundraising in general, access, knowledge, all that stuff, and go to market strategy and implementation. So those are the main things we're going to help with. Um, and depends on your sector, depends on your stage, depends on many things, but those are our main focus. And then having a community of other founders, of VCs, of professors from Stanford, from other schools that you can talk to, tap into, use. Yeah, that's kind of the goal we have.
And Sasha, are you focusing on founders who've already moved into the Silicon Valley as of today, or you also do some cross-border programs outside
Mm.
of the Silicon Valley in other places? I mean to say
Yeah, that's a
physical
good,
events in other geographies. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, great follow-up. Thanks. So, we're focusing on people that are serious about moving to the US. That's really
Yes.
the focus. If you're just going to come to visit and you're unsure, that there's many other learning expedition things you can do. We want people who are actually going to move here or already have moved here that's serious about that. That having been said, we did launch a global ambassador program quite recently with a number of people, for now mostly through Europe, that are doing local events, that are doing local things to help founders there and give them an idea of what's out here and kind of get a feel if they do want to come out here. So we're kind of trying to create that bridge more substantially. Um, so we do have some programmation. And again, this is on our website and things like that. You can see who the ambassadors are and where they're located. We have some in Spain and London and France, and Ukraine. But yeah, the idea is to really focus on the people that are either here or serious about moving here and that want to build a company here and succeed here.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Sasha. I think I am I've asked all the questions I had in my kitty. And is there anything that you want to add in terms of any advice that you would give to founders who are serious about moving to Silicon Valley? Anything about the venture ecosystem there? Anything you want to share with the audience that probably I have missed asking you today?
Maybe the last thing I'll end on is that, I know I have family around the world in Europe, and I know maybe right now, um, the image that the US is giving is that it's not a good place to come work or not a place to come immigrate. Um, and I get that, but I think for the most part, that's not the reality on the ground, especially not in California and the Bay Area. I think there's still tremendous opportunity. I think it's still the best place in the world to build a company. Some of the smartest people from all around the world are here. There's still tremendous amounts of opportunity. So I would, that's just kind of my piece would be to not get discouraged by media narratives or things you're hearing. And if it's something that you're interested in, if it's something that you want to explore, just give it a try. I know there's a lot of difficulties to it, but you can come visit, you can come just kind of get the feel for it, see how it is in person. And, like I fell in love with this area. I fell in love with this whole crazy ecosystem. I think many others would just take a chance and still you can make your dreams come true here. You can make a great career. You can meet amazing people. So I still highly recommend um, the US is a place to live. California, particularly, is a place to live and build a career.
I cannot agree more. And I think challenging times test your conviction. And I think if still believe in your dreams and where you want to get, I don't think so. The environment or circumstances should ever define um, where you actually want to go. So
Hmm.
thank you for
Yeah,
sharing the last piece.
of course. Yeah. And thank you for having me. It was a great discussion. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Sasha. It was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. See you soon, probably for another episode.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.